In my years of doing this, so something like a little over 50 years, what I found is that many times in my life, things that surprised me were because they never happened in my lifetime before, but they happened many times in history. So, for example, then studying these earlier times, if they happen mechanistically, I need to know how they work. So I studied the Great Depression. That's why we anticipated the 2008 financial crisis, because the same things happen over and over again, but sometimes not in our lifetimes. And so there were three big things that are happening to us that haven't happened in our lifetime.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have American investor Ray Dalio on fighting inflation in the current financial market. Dalio believes what took us into recession was large injections of debt and money. There has been a significant amount of money that has been given away, so as people spend more, prices rise. Dalio notes that where resources in the world are allocated, they used to be rooted in an economic and profit basis. Now, materials are issued by political and ideological anxieties. Let's listen as Ray Dalio talks about the rise of inflation and the periods of stagnation we're seeing now. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
It's really simple, the way the system works is if you give a lot of money and credit and you make it cheap enough, they will spend it. Okay, but when you create debt, it's stimulative over the short run and depressing over the long run. Because when you have to pay it back, then you have to earn more than you spend to pay it back. So what do you do with that debt? Okay, if you make it tough to pay it back, then what happens is you have an economic downturn. If you make it easy, you print the money. And that's the cycle. So when we look at what the Fed has done, the Fed and the government together gave an enormous amount of debt and credit and created a lurch forward, a giant lurch forward, and created a bubble, okay? And now they're putting on the brakes. Okay, so now we're going to create a giant lurch backward, I think, because it's simple. The amount we talk about inflation. Inflation is a very simple thing. It's the amount of money that's spent, money and credit spent, divided by the quantity sold is the price. And so if you take that money away, then you can't get rid of inflation. The way you get rid of inflation is to get people to spend less. And that is what an economic downturn. So the cycle goes like that. And then when you get to the point where, let's say, the economic pain is greater than the inflation pain, then you see them do the opposite. We have a financial issue. We have an internal conflict issue that has very big implications for how well our country is run, but also what does it mean for taxes? What does it mean for the value of assets? I need to understand that. And the third was international conflict. So in my whole lifetime, the United States was clearly a dominant power, and we were in the American world order. 1945, the United States became the leading world power, accounted for half world GDP. We had 80% of the world's money because gold was money then, and we had a military monopoly. And so the reason that we were the world's power, that's why the United Nations is in New York and IMF and World Bank are in Washington, so dominant. But we could see this conflict, this emerging competition. And the last time that happened was the 1930 to 45 period, and I need to study that. And so I studied that pattern. And these are the big things in our lives right now, but we are not acquainted with it. And so I needed to study the rise and declines of currencies, the rise and declines of empires. And because these cycles go on over a long period of time, I needed to see enough of those cases. So I had to go back, let's say, the 500 years. So I studied all of those. Now, I'm not an academic, I'm a practitioner. So it's not like I'm writing history books. It's for the purpose of making decisions today. So what I learned there has been important in our positioning in the markets right now. When I say these things, I use measures. There are 18 measures of health, and you could see them in the book. And they're measures of things like what is your percentage of world GDP, what is your percentage of exports, how your reserve currency, but also what is your education level of education, what is your competitiveness, 18 measures of that. And we are in decline. We're declining on a relative basis, but even also some measures in an absolute basis. So that's what the arc is. And then China has been the leading competitor. I've been having, not since 1984, I've been going to China. Watch it, since I started going there, per capita income has increased by 26 times. And so if you use measures of comparability in military, technology, share of world GDP, all of that, you see that. That is the only real power. There are military powers, but history has shown if you're a military power and you're not an economic power, while you may be a threat, you're not going to win the war. So that's what the picture looks like. It's all a matter of basics. Do you earn more than you spend? Okay, do you have a good income statement? And do you have a good balance sheet? Do you have one or two parents who care for you and give you the guidance and the values? Can I go to a good public school and have food and health care and come out with an environment of equal opportunity? That's all you need. That's all you need. Because if you do those things, you will have a civil population that will be productive and that you will be financially capable, strong, and so you're going to do things better and better and you'll be strong. So it comes down to those fundamentals. When I look at one country or another and I'm thinking, where do I want to invest? It's like I'm looking at those things. Do they have a problem with internal conflict or is it orderly? Just those basics. Now, the question is, can we do those basics? Okay, so how are we doing on those basics? You have measures to judge that. Yes, we can do it. And I think the most important thing is how we are with each other. Like, do we have a democracy in which we can come together and have a very strong bipartisan middle, okay? And then work on dealing with those things. Like, Governor Lamont touched on some of those basics. So that becomes the big question, I think.
He goes on to say that currencies are debt instruments, which will naturally decline in value. The question is, will the value of the dollar decline more than other currencies? Dalio believes that we're in that environment now, and there's a paradigm shift that will lead to a different store of wealth. Let's check out part 2 of Ray Dalio's interview as he discusses the problem that the dollar presents as a store of value. Dalio believes that when you spend a lot more money than you earn, then you have to print money to make up that difference to make the purchases, and then that devalues money. So as money goes into other assets, it produces more inflation, and you start to enter a certain type of environment. And the environment that we're in is beginning to be very much like that of the 1970s. The probability of a recession is inevitable at this point, and we'll start to see the effects of how the devaluing of currencies will affect global stock and crypto markets. Please comment down below on what you think about Ray Dalio's interview. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.